You all, and welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla. Of course, I am your mayor of PHNX. This is your vice mayor, also known as Thunderstick Jesse Friedman. Jesse, Cubs made a big signing yesterday, somebody who we were quite interested in. And of course, anytime a National League team gets better, we have to wonder, how is that going to impact us? What is that going to do to me? How is that going to make me feel? Is this going to make me feel sad? And I think that Shota Imanaga might end up being one of those guys that we have a little remorse about missing out on. I think he's going to be a special pitcher in this league, and kudos to the Cubs for adding him to their roster.
Yeah, I mean, we're really just here to talk about your feelings, Derek, about how you're doing emotionally in light of the signing that the Cubs have made.
That's most days. I mean, most days I'm not great. I'm emotionally stable right now is the best that I could say. Not happy.
The Diamondbacks have Eduardo Rodriguez, so that's helping.
I'm still okay with that. I'm still riding high on the World Series appearance for sure. But much like a lot of Diamondbacks fans, I'm irrationally panicked about adding more to this team, even though we made it as far as we did. When I see other teams adding these players, and especially with how slow free agency has moved, I get a little antsy. I'm still waiting for the JD Martinez announcement. But we do know, we talked yesterday about if the Diamondbacks would add some more arms and how they kind of are in a position right now where they don't really need to add any more starting pitching. But man, would have been nice to add someone of, with these statistics from 2023.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the price tag, which is not official. We haven't gotten any official news on this yet. It seems a little bit more speculative right now. But John Heyman did say that he has heard that the guarantee here is around 2 years and $30 million, which feels pretty light. I mean, in terms of a guarantee to a guy. I mean, I think there were reports recently that the contract for Imanaga could go north of $100 million. So if that indeed proves to be the case, that the Cubs are only guaranteeing him 2 years and $30 million, that feels like a pretty big win for the Cubs.
And a miss by everyone else.
Potentially, yeah. Apparently it's very complicated, and there's like cascading player and team options that could bring the total dollar value up to around $80 million. At least that's what John Heyman mentioned. We'll see where those numbers wind up when all is said and done. But yeah, at first glance, if those numbers do prove to be true, that's a much lower price tag than I anticipated for Imanaga for sure.
It's the type of thing that we thought we would see with some of these international players because of the unknown there, right? The fact that you don't know how they're going to acclimate to Major League Baseball and if they're going to be nearly as effective as they were in either Korea or Japan coming over and pitching here in the United States. That actually makes a lot more sense than some of the other deals. Obviously we know Yamamoto is a very good player, right? But again, to give him the contract that he received did seem like they were very confident that he was going to be able to make that, to adapt to the United States and playing for Major League Baseball. And I have a hard time saying that about any player, no matter how good they were in the league that they were from. That's the job of a sports franchise, though, to decide when they want to take that leap, of faith essentially on a player and give them money when they haven't really proven themselves to be worth that dollar amount, right? Imanaga, based on what he did, I would say that he's confidently worth more than the deal that you just said if he can achieve those same numbers here in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you necessarily project that, right? Coming over from Japan, Japan kind of has this reputation as being somewhere between AAA and the majors in terms of competition level. But yeah, he was really good in Japan this past season, a 2.80 ERA, a 105 whip, a strikeout rate of just under 30%, a walk rate of 4%, We talked about this a while back when we were thinking about Imanaga as a potential candidate for the Diamondbacks. His strikeout rate was higher than Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and his walk rate was lower than Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So, you figure Yamamoto gets $325 million. You're able to get this guy for, a guarantee of $30 million. That
10% of it.
Yeah, that feels like you're
like a win
in a pretty good spot. But at the same time, Imanaga is 30 years old. He's not 25.
He's not much older. Coming from me, I should never say much older when it's 5 years, but yeah.
He is considerably older than Yamamoto in baseball years. 5 years is a lot.
Thank you for putting it in like dog years terms. I appreciate that.
You're still young, Derek. Don't worry.
Thank you.
In baseball years, you're old, but you're still young for the rest of us.
I'm going to flip that. Keep it just for me. I'm not putting on social. That's just for me.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Imanaga's game translates. The strikeout and walk numbers are very good. The stuff on paper is very good. There's been a lot of reporting done about this. Out of every pitcher who pitched in the World Baseball Classic, Imanaga had the highest Stuff Plus, which if you haven't heard of Stuff Plus, it's like this number that I think Eno Saris and some other baseball nerds came up with that is basically just scaled to 100. So 100 is average. Anything above that would be above average. Anything below that would be below average. And Imanaga, his stuff really shined in the World Baseball Classic. His fastball has an extreme amount of vertical ride, more ride than apparently any four-seam fastball of any pitcher in Major League Baseball. And he also throws from a really low arm slot. He's a short pitcher. So I guess I should say his release point is very low as a result of that, which tends to make that upward ride a little bit more effective. So there are some things to like about this arsenal and to believe that it really could translate to the majors.
In 8 career seasons, he has a sub-3 ERA. So in his career, he has a 2.96 ERA. And again, these aren't terrible numbers. Like you said, there is some adjustment, right? Like he's probably not going to put up the same numbers here in Major League Baseball as he did in the NPB. But I still feel like if you get a 3.5 ERA out of him, like that's a win. If you're paying him,
that would be a huge win.
You know what I mean? If you're paying him $30 million over 2 seasons, then that right there, obviously makes it, a no-brainer for any team. And I guess I'm a little jealous again, seeing that deal and thinking like, I know the Diamondbacks have options. I know they didn't need to go out and get another starting pitcher, but if there was a guy to take a chance on, this seemed like the type of player that you would take a chance on.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It seems like Imanaga is kind of a polarizing player. There's this big stuff element where people are looking at the fastball metrics. They're looking at the movement on the splitter and the slider, and they're like, man, this guy has 3+ pitches. Not that many major league pitchers have 3+ pitches. And yet there's also this narrative, which I think has been the predominant narrative, which is that Imanaga is a number 4 or 5 starter. He is a back end guy. And so it's a little hard for me to reconcile those two viewpoints because they don't really line up. There aren't a whole lot of number 5 starters floating around, who have more vertical ride on their fastball than anyone else in baseball and have like a plus splitter and a plus, like, it's hard for me to square those things. The big downside for Imanaga, the thing that he struggled with the most in Japan, was giving up home runs.
Yeah.
He gave up 17 home runs in 148 innings this past season, which is not a ton by Major League Baseball standards, but
it's a lot per NPB standards, right?
By
There's
NPB standards, it's more of a contact-oriented league. Not as many guys hit homers. Yamamoto, for reference, gave up 2 home runs all season, which you're not holding him to that standard. But 17 by Japanese standards is a lot, and I think there's this sense that coming over to the big leagues, he might strike out a lot of guys, he might walk not that many guys, but he might give up enough homers that pushes him from being a number 2-3 starter to more of a back end guy.
If you could scroll back there, Damon, I think it was Castle. Freeland there said Imanaga will put up impressive strikeout and walk numbers, but when he gets hit hard. I definitely see that in the numbers to back that up. And again, that's still obviously something that's interesting, how it adapts, how his stuff and how that good stuff that he has adapts to Major League Baseball, and if that's going to result in him getting hit equally as hard here, or if it plays differently. There's also the idea that it feels like the World Baseball Classic had a huge impact here on these international players being able to be seen, especially on a team like Japan that was such a good baseball team collectively.
They had some success.
Yeah,
they won the whole
damn thing, right? And then you look at the players on that team, and it just allows you. It's the importance of all of these exhibitions and anything where players who might not normally be seen by major league front offices and scouts and things like that get a chance to be seen. Obviously, scouts look everywhere, but sometimes it's just about being on a stage like the World Baseball Classic to get some of those players, and their stuff in front of everybody's eyes.
I think Kenta Maeda stands out to me as an interesting comp here. I don't think that Imanaga will have the durability issues that Maeda has had. I certainly hope not. Maeda has been through it over the years, had a hard time staying healthy. But we talked about Maeda as a potential target for the Diamondbacks way back when, before he signed with the Tigers. And his strikeout and walk numbers were really impressive. He had a 27.3% strikeout rate, a 6.5% walk rate this past season. Those are both really, really good numbers. But at the same time, Maeda is not a number 1 or number 2 starter, right? Maeda is more of a back end guy. And for him, a big reason for that is that he does give up a lot of home runs. Maeda was like 1.7 home runs per 9 or something like that this past year. So I think something like a Kenta Maeda who is more durable and gives you more innings, I think that's a reasonable expectation. But yeah, I'm still intrigued here. I don't know if I fully buy into the number 4 starter expectation that a lot of people seem to have. It seems like there's some potential for more than that. And given these contract numbers, I mean, that would be a huge win, as we said earlier, for the Cubs.
Well, there is still some more free agents out there on the market. Not sure if you're aware of that, but things are still moving slowly. The New York Yankees have emerged as yet another front runner for another top free agent in Marcus Stroman. But we got to ask if, are the Yankees going to close the deal? I mean, I know they got Juan Soto, and I know they've made a couple of moves, but it seems right now like the Yankees are the opposite of the Dodgers. The Yankees are connected to
what does that mean?
They're like they're the big franchise that's like connected to every free agent player, and they're getting none of them.
I mean, well, that's what the Dodgers have kind of been in the past, right?
Yeah,
Like the Dodgers are always connected to every big name free agent.
They're just quietly in the shadows, and then it's like, oh yeah, the Dodgers are also in on this guy, and then it's like the Dodgers signed him. That's what this free agency period has felt like for sure. We know the Dodgers are looming over everybody, but the Yankees really, I don't know, there were reports that Stroman wanted to go to the Yankees, but the Yankees didn't want him.
Yeah, which I guess now is not the case anymore. I don't know. I don't know what to make.
I mean,
of that.
when you start when you start putting how players dress and what they do and how big their sideburns are impact the amount of talent that you put on your team. I just have to ask that about the Yankees. Stop making everybody shave their faces, and maybe you'll get some quality players. I don't know what to tell you, but I wouldn't sign with them. I'm not shaving. I don't know. I looked pretty good with the mustache. I might do that. But
you'd be an ideal fit.
I kind of would.
They're gonna look at those pictures. They're gonna be like, "This is our guy.
Sign him. Sign him." Oh yeah. Well, the Arizona Diamondbacks. What's that?
You and Austin Wells.
Yeah. Well, hey pal, you too. Watch it.
Do you remember the good old days when Sean in the summer would be screaming out here on the recliners?
Oh, I miss Sean so much.
Just so mad about Austin Wells' mustache.
I miss Sean screaming is what I should say. I just miss Sean being in this building and yelling about cheese shops and talking about the atrocities of, bands, I guess. I don't know. But the Arizona Diamondbacks, of course, again, I'm jealous. I want more players to sign, or I want them to at least make some moves, some trades to continue improving this team. And I don't even know if they need to. I just want to add more. The more the Dodgers add, the more some of these other teams add. I want the Diamondbacks to do the same. Jesse had actually a pretty good idea of someone who maybe they should trade for.
Yeah, this is my idea.
I had to put him out on it.
Pin it on me.
Well, according to reports, the Boston Red Sox have been looking to move a player. They have received trade interest in Masataka Yoshida and seem open to reworking their outfield and potentially trading him. So we basically wanted to explore if that would be a good option for the Diamondbacks. We know he's a very good player offensively. However, defensively, not so much.
Not so much. Yeah. I don't know if I would frame it as the Red Sox are looking to trade Yoshida as much as just like
people have called on him.
Yeah, they've gotten some interest, and the Red Sox are in kind of a bizarre place as a franchise right now, where nobody really knows exactly what their long-term plan is. There's a lot of questions there moving forward. But yeah, if we look at Masataka Yoshida, his numbers from the 2023 season, as you said, offensively, there's a lot to like here, right? A 289 average, a 335 on base, 445 slugging percentage, 15 homers, 72 RBI, 0.6 wins above replacement. And he only struck out 14% of the time. Yoshida makes a ton of contact. The bat to ball skill is absolutely there. That's something that people, expected to translate when he came over to the majors last year, and it certainly did. But yeah, as you said, there are some real defensive limitations here. He played 87 games in left field in 2023. And he had -4 defensive runs saved, -8 OAA.
Yikes.
And if you're wondering how a guy can put up this good of offensive numbers and have 0.6 wins above replacement on Fangraphs, that's why it's using those StatCast defensive metrics, which were extremely poor for Yoshida in 2023.
So what would be the option here? Just more of a DH as far as actually having him play in the outfield?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, maybe he'd get a few reps in the Diamondbacks outfield. But yeah, he would be in my mind a potential DH option for them. Someone who can hit both righties and lefties. There is a decent split there, but he still hit 273, 347, 398 against lefties as a left-handed hitter, so he can certainly hold his own against both. The big hurdle here is his contract.
Yeah.
He signed a 5-year, $90 million contract last year with the Red Sox. There's now 4 years and $72 million remaining on that deal. It's $18 million per season. JD Martinez would probably be about $18 million per season. I guess maybe there's some world where the Diamondbacks could spend that kind of money. But Yoshida is not worth that, frankly, given the defensive limitations that he showed in 2023. The Red Sox would have to eat money in order to get any kind of value in return for Yoshida at this point. So yeah, maybe if the Red Sox brought it down to like $10 million a year that the Diamondbacks would owe, that would maybe work financially for the D-backs. Whether the D-backs would want Yoshida for 4 seasons, I guess, is another question here. I'm not sure you want to lock in a DH that many years down the road. We had this conversation about Ketel Marte just the other day. Do you want a shorter term DH so that you have the opportunity to move him over there if you see the need? So yeah, there's a lot more going against this than going for it, if I'm being totally honest. But there's at least some elements that would make sense.
It doesn't match either timeline really, because I feel like what you're looking for is a younger guy, not somebody that's 30 years old, and that is going to be a part of the core essentially with Gabby Moreno, with Corbin Carroll, with Alec Thomas, those guys that are going to be here. Then you have the shorter time frame, which is essentially like the starting pitcher clock, the Zac Gallen, Merrill Kelly years that we have left. And I feel like right now, the main thing you really want to address is that period of time with shorter term deal, 2 years, at the most with a player, just because after those guys potentially are no longer part of the team, might not be a rebuild that is needed, but you don't want to necessarily commit to parts like long term like that might still be around. I mean, I don't know the direction they're going to go. I don't know what's going to happen with Zac Gallen. And I know we're going to talk about the MLB Network ranking him very highly, which definitely does not help our case to bring him back. But I do feel very much like you want to do everything you can to kind of have, especially players that you're acquiring right now, match up with the timeline a little bit better. Like Eduardo Rodriguez.
Sure.
That's fine, I think, and that at least
you'd like to have one starting pitcher locked in beyond 2025.
Beyond 2025, yes. You know what I mean? Like it would just
not everything has to end in 2025. But yeah, I agree with you. The timeline here with Yoshida, the 4 years, I don't think that makes a ton of sense for the D-backs. Connor Mormon said in the chat for $18 million per year, give me JD for 2 years plus no assets given up. Absolutely.
There it is.
I do think, kind of like I said earlier, if this trade did happen, which I don't expect it to, but if it did, it would be the Red Sox eating probably a decent chunk of money here. The D-backs, there's no scenario where they would trade for Yoshida and pay all that contract. It would be, $9 or $10 million a year maybe. And even then, I don't think you're giving up huge assets because, again, Yoshida was worth 0.6 WAR this past season. If you're paying him $9 or $10 million a year, you probably shouldn't be giving up really much more than that in a trade. But the projections for Yoshida moving forward are pretty good.
Yeah. Steamer and Zips both like the direction.
Yes.
And they both have him around 2 wins above replacement at 1.9.
Yeah.
Now, is that a reflection of him playing less defense? Or is that a reflection of potentially his defense being better than the atrocious
That's a good question.
year we had?
Yeah,
right?
I imagine it's probably a combination of both. I haven't seen their depth charts break down and kind of what positions they're having in play. But
Zips has him hitting nearly 300 next season. And
yeah,
that's just
296, 356, 457 from Zips. Steamer 291, 361, 460. There could be potential for Yoshida to get better moving forward, even though he's 30 years old. This past year was his rookie season in the majors, and maybe he's able to draw a few more walks as the years go on, make a little bit more hard contact.
I think he's also a case of what we were talking about earlier, though, right? Like the Red Sox gave him 5 years, $90 million. And it's not like you said, like they're not trying to move him. They're not actively trying to get rid of him.
Yeah, they're not shopping him.
They are open to listening to offers on him, but they're not necessarily going to move him. But I mean, I feel like if you're paying that much for a player that, has a 0.6 Fangraphs wins above replacement, like what are you doing here, right? And
the contract does not look good for the Red Sox.
And that's the problem is like he's a great hitter, right? And I mean, his defense in Japan was probably better than this, and it's more of playing defense in the United States. Sometimes when a player, hasn't played in a league, you have no idea what is going to translate well and what isn't, right? They could still be a great hitter, but again, if they can't be out there as a defender and offer you that other side of the ball, then they're instantly not worth nearly the amount of money that you thought that they were going to be. And I think sometimes defense is vastly underrated, right? When it comes to things like having a -4 defensive runs saved and a -8 outs above average, it really shows that you are like pretty significantly behind as far as a defender or worse than the league average, right? So
sure.
I don't know, man. I just think that for the most part, I agree with you. I don't think it's a good move. It's a good trade. I think Connor was right about the dollar amount plus giving up assets. If you're going to spend that much, go get Soler, go get JD Martinez, and don't give up the assets that you're going to have to get.
I mean, by all means, if the D-backs have $16-17 million to spend on a DH this offseason, don't spend it on Masataka Yoshida. This would be if the Diamondbacks don't have $16-17 million to spend, and they go to the Red Sox and they're like, "Hey, can you eat half of this for us?
Can you eat 7?"
Yeah, and then maybe that brings it down to the D-backs price range, and they get themselves a DH who at least projects moving forward to be better than Tommy Pham, to be better than some of those lower tier DH targets out there. But yeah, the 4 years thing, having 4 years remaining, regardless of what the AAV is that the D-backs would have to cover, that's a lot of years. So it's probably more years than the Diamondbacks would want.
Well, we thank you guys for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed already, make sure to do so. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any of our wonderful shows go live. Leave us a thumbs up. Of course, Gabby Moreno will tell you always to drop a like. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, you missed Gabby just stopping by, but I assure you he did come by to tell you drop a like. If you're listening over there, make sure you leave us a review. We appreciate those 5-star reviews. And make sure you're subscribed as well. A great place, by the way, that I'm a huge fan of lately, Jesse, is Sombrros. And that's because Sombrros is now in my neighborhood, and they are incredible. Their tortillas are incredible. Their food is incredible. I stop by almost every day for breakfast. I feel like they're already getting to know me by name. They're all, "Hey, bacon, egg, and cheese burrito. You got it, baby. Green salsa. Let's go." But Sombrros is a family-owned and operated restaurant here in the Valley and was voted Arizona's most loved Mexican restaurant. So make sure to stop by. They have locations all throughout the Valley, including their brand new locations in Goodyear, Peoria, and the one that I go to at I-17 and Joe Max. Visit Sombrros.com to find one near you. And you can also let Sombrros cater your next meal, big or small, whether you are having any kind of parties this month or just trying to feed your family. Check them out. You can order online or find one near you, again, by visiting Sombrros.com. Baseball season right around the corner. Our friend Karen sent us a picture of a shirt that makes me very much miss baseball season, much like her. But once it's here, you know where to go. You know to go to Game Time to get your tickets. You get your last minute tickets at Game Time because it's the place for last minute ticket deals. I assure you I can read and I'm not broken. I just sometimes you need to unplug Derek, wait 15 seconds and plug him back in. But Game Time is the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Of course, it's very aesthetically pleasing, very easy to use. And of course, you can get the best deals on tickets for concert shows and of course, sporting events. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We touched on it a little earlier, but Zac Gallen was ranked 3rd by MLB Network on their list of the top 10 pitchers in Major League Baseball, which was a little surprising. I was taken back by it. Jesse, were you surprised by seeing ZG up that high?
I was. I mean, we're kind of used to Zac Gallen flying under the radar a little bit, and if anything, people underselling how good of a starting pitcher he really is. And I don't necessarily think that 3rd, is way too high or anything. I can see how they drew this conclusion, but it's certainly not like too low, right? I mean, it's
you're not going to get
that's a pretty good spot for Zac Gallen to wind up in.
You're not going to get the same energy as the Gabriel Moreno ranking yesterday that we discussed, but this was very surprising. I have to, in taking a look at it, I have to wonder. Is this more of a reflection of what they feel like they're going to be in 2024? Is this a reflection of just the 2023 season? I don't really know, because there's a lot of misses here. And honestly, there's some people that probably deserve to be on this list that aren't. And again, Zac Gallen, we love Gallen. I don't know if Zac Gallen deserves to be up that high. I definitely don't think Justin Verlander deserves to be up that high.
No.
But that's what makes me wonder what makes this list. They say top 10 right now starting pitchers. The list goes for you audio listeners: Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns, Zac Gallen at 3rd, Justin Verlander at 4th, Blake Snell, Cy Young winner, at 5th, Zach Wheeler at 6th, Spencer Strider 7th, Logan Webb 8th, Max Fried 9th, and then Sonny Gray rounds thing off at 10th there. And again, there's some notable omissions. Justin Steele was very good last year. He is not on this list. There's
a lot of guys.
Kevin Gausman?
Yeah, Kevin Gausman has to be on the list in my mind. I mean, Kevin Gausman the last 3 seasons, 551 and 2/3 innings, which is up there with pretty much all of these guys. And he's been pretty darn good as a 1.32 ERA plus over these past 3 years. So I think Gausman has to be here somewhere. Verlander, I agree with you. What a tremendous career he has had.
Absolutely. Still doing it at 40 years old.
And still, at first glance, I was like, okay, it is outrageous for Justin Verlander to be number 4 on this list. And the more I looked at the numbers, I was like, okay, I still don't agree with it, but I can understand why they did it. Over the past 3 years, Justin Verlander has a 170 ERA plus, which is way better than anyone else on this list.
It basically makes him the best pitcher on this list.
Yeah. But granted, Justin Verlander is now 40 years old, and his most recent season is not as good as 2 years ago, not as good as 3 years ago. There is a decline happening here, and he was still very good in 2023. He missed some starts, but he still had a low 3 ERA. But yeah, I cannot project Justin Verlander moving forward to be the 4th best starter in baseball, despite how incredibly well he has aged over the last few years.
Zac Gallen is one of the youngest pitchers on this list, right? But there's still some other guys: Logan Webb, Spencer Strider, younger than Zac Gallen. But what's interesting is you talk about a 3-year average. Gallen is arguably one of the worst pitchers on this list. If you pull a 3-year average.
You get that dang 2021 season there, and it kind of messes with all the numbers.
Similar to Blake Snell. Blake Snell's 3-year average isn't great, but it's only because one season really kind of messes things up there for him, and then one season was phenomenal, But Gallen, again, I feel like, this list, and Elise says this list has a lot of Scott Boras clients near the top with a little thinking emoji, and she's not wrong about that.
That thought did cross my mind, yeah. especially Blake Snell being as high as he is.
Yeah.
Blake Snell being 5th on this list. Look, I know he just rattled off like the best 23 start span in MLB history to end the 2023 season. There's a reason he went from being like mediocre mid-rotation Padres aging guy to the Cy Young winner. I mean, he was remarkably good down the stretch. But yeah, still just looking at the full body of work for Blake Snell over the last few years, as great as he was in 2023, Like, I would rather have Kevin Gausman at the top of my rotation than Blake Snell.
Yeah.
I know that Gausman's a couple years older, but he's been just way more consistent on a year-to-year basis. And from a volume standpoint, Gausman has thrown, 551 and 2/3 innings over the last 3 years compared to Snell being down in the low mid 400s. So, Snell should be lower. Gausman should be on the list, potentially near the top of the list, in my view.
Framber Valdez isn't on this list.
Yeah,
Would you put Framber?
Framber Valdez is pretty good.
Yeah.
He wasn't quite as good in 2023, but he's 534 innings over the last 3 years with a 1.30 ERA plus. I mean, that's right up there with a lot of the guys on this list. He should probably be on here as well.
I mean, Snakes on the Diamond says, I feel like the people who put that list together ignored Gallen's second half. You're not wrong about that, and maybe even didn't watch the playoffs that closely. Justin Steele, another notable omission. He's been very good over his last 2 seasons. Yeah. Kodai Senga was very good in his rookie season.
Yeah, it's just 1 year, so maybe people are hesitant to like go too crazy with that.
But what are we doing? Yeah. Like, when we go crazy with these lists, we should go crazy with these lists. And I mean, again, in this case, we're almost advocating on the fact that you maybe went too high with Zac Gallen. But if you want to get people excited about lists like this and about Major League Baseball, maybe feature a guy that's a rookie that had a sensational rookie season that made him a candidate for Rookie of the Year. Even on a year where Corbin Carroll did the things he did, Kodai Senga was still, in the mix for that, right? You've also factor in, I don't know, like, yeah, I guess that's the case. And again, Justin Verlander pulling the last 3 year stats, that's, I mean, that it validates him being on this list. But at this point, do we really want to say that Justin Verlander is going to be one of the top 10 pitchers in 2024 when the season starts? And I don't think so.
That's how I think you have to view it, is like going into 2024, like, who do you want on your team based on recent performance? And Verlander is just not that guy. I think Sonny Gray, for as great as he was in 2023, I don't see Sonny. I don't think Sonny Gray would make this list for me. We mentioned a few guys who probably should be on this list. Like, I would probably put both Gausman and Framber Valdez on here over Sonny Gray at this point.
Same.
Luis Castillo has Castillo is just a solid number 1 starter year to year. He does pitch in a very pitcher-friendly environment, and so I think people might think that he's a little better than he is in some ways. But he's still very durable on a year-to-year basis and has been, tremendous ever since he joined the Seattle Mariners. But it's tough. It's like this year, right now in baseball, I feel like there are fewer like number 1 starting pitchers that have like no warts than there have been in the past.
Yeah.
Right. It's like Garrett Cole stands above everyone else on this list as someone who doesn't have any kind of, like, even Corbin Burns at number 2. He has steadily declined every year for the past 3 seasons. And then Zac Gallen with the second half that he had, and Verlander being 40, and Blake Snell leading the league in walks, and, Zach Wheeler being solid. But, like, is he really the second best starter in baseball? Like, I could go through every starting pitcher who's on this list, or even some of the guys off this list, and point out, like, some flaws in their game or some signs of decline.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Is that a reflection of how baseball has changed as a game with time? Because that didn't really used to be the case when I watched it when I was a kid, right?
Sure.
That didn't used to be the case when you had guys like Greg Maddux out there, and when you had some of the elite pitchers in Major League Baseball during a certain period of time. It felt like those guys were untouchable. And now we're to a point where we're like, I don't know, I'd pay $100 million for a guy with a 3.25 ERA, right? Like, it's just not really the same as far as like how good the best pitchers in baseball are, and how the gap between the elite pitchers and then the good pitchers, right? I don't know. I feel like analytics has made offensive more potent and has made pitching a little bit more difficult because there's so much information available out there. And I feel like batters are understanding the game better now than they ever have. So it makes it harder for pitchers to achieve a level of being great and then staying there, because the players adapt to you. And then if you don't continue to adapt as a pitcher, you're not going to continue to be at the top of your game. Right. And I don't feel that was the case. I feel like back in the good old 80s and 90s, you could just have one pitch that you threw the shit out of. And like, they just, it's coming. You still can't catch up to it. Now They know what angle it's coming, how many, what the revolutions per minute is, where it's going to break, how it's going to do this. I don't even sometimes looking at Randy Johnson striking people out with his slider. You're like, why did you swing at that? My God, it was 3 feet low and almost hit your ankle, and you still saw it coming in at you as a pitch that was going to hit in the strike zone, and you swung at it. That's wild. I don't know what explains that, because I don't feel like pitchers are deceiving batters in the same manner that they used to at one point.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that all that much, but I guess I imagine the data revolution across the game right now. And what you're saying about players, just hitters in particular, just having access to so much data about what is going to be coming at them. Yeah, maybe it does make it harder for starting pitchers to be consistent on a year-to-year basis. We do know for sure that the start, I guess, is, as Michael said in the chat, the 200-inning starter is going extinct in the next 5 years. Yep. That's a narrative that we do know for sure, is that starting pitchers are not throwing as many innings, right? And Major League Baseball is considering measures to try to prevent the extinction of, the 6-inning, 7-inning starting pitcher. That's something that they view as being good for the game. And you can certainly understand why. Starting pitching matchups are a really important part of baseball. And a big reason why people target certain games is I want to go to that game, or I want to watch that game for sure. I hope for the betterment of the game, I hope that Major League Baseball is able to reverse that.
Well, and even though those two men never actually face off against each other, having those starting pitcher marquee matchups are fun, right? And I don't know. I do think that the game is changing. I think that even when it comes to the success the Diamondbacks found this year with bullpen games and things like that, right? A lot of that is because it's actually really hard to generate offense against the bullpen game. If the guys are on point, they're going out there doing their job for an inning, and then you have to figure out a whole other, batter the next, or another pitcher the next inning, right? But I don't know. There's still Merrill Kelly. He was a guy that a big goal of his was to hit 200 innings. He was successful at doing that. Didn't do that last year due to some of the injuries, but Merrill Kelly might be considered potentially to be on this list. His last 2 seasons have been very good as well. So, Elise said it best. These kind of lists are so subjective that it's hard to really take it seriously. And that's what it comes down to. They're put on tough. They're here for us to argue about. They're here for us to get mad about. Yeah, this is exactly what they wanted.
Yeah,
once again,
just like the MLB nerds thing yesterday.
We played right into their hands.
We're just playing right into their hands.
And we're going to do it again with beer sales here in a minute. So.
Yeah, right. One question I do have, which is something we really can't answer right now, but is Yamamoto on this list next year at this time? I could see a world in which he is. I wouldn't necessarily expect him to be, but given
let's hope he's not. Can we hope he's not? Is that okay? Am I a hater?
That is
if I
fair.
say I hope he's not?
That is very fair.
That's what I want in my life. I want him to not. Am I going to bet against it? Probably not, because he's a very good pitcher. And like Jesse said, there is obviously something to be lost when you come over to Major League Baseball, when you have the incredible stats Yamamoto put up in Japan, but hopefully the loss is more significant. Hopefully we're seeing a 4 ERA in his future and not being a part of any list like this. But I will tell you that you can head over to the BetMGM app right now and put down some future bets right now. If you're feeling saucy, if you miss baseball enough that you want to try to predict the future, make sure to do so on BetMGM. You can download the Sportsbook app now on iOS or Android, or visit BetMGM.com and sign up. When you do sign up, use our promo code of PHNX and deposit at least just $5 into your newly created account and place a wager in that amount or more at a standard odds price. Once you have placed a bet, you will receive $158 in bonus bets in honor of Super Bowl 58, regardless of the outcome of your wager. Sign up now for BetMGM and use that bonus code of PHNX. And remember what I said yesterday. Don't let anybody tell you that your bet that won was a bad bet, because if it won, there is no bad bets. Winning bets can't be bad bets. Those two things aren't the same thing. But again, sign up for BetMGM and use our bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through the sportsbook mobile application for at least $5. You will receive $150 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details, and now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
Suck it, Ontario.
Derek.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw Espo and he got me piped to say that. Okay.
That's their thing.
I know. Yeah, it is. It is. He has this beef with Ontario and he likes to rub it in their face that they can't use the app there. Meanwhile, we sing angelic praises normally about Ontario.
I feel like we need like a PHNX D-backs road trip to Ontario, Canada.
We do.
Right?
There's also Ontario, California. That's much closer. We could just go there. I know that's not what they mean in the disclaimer, but I mean, I'm just saying.
It's a nice airport. If you're picking a SoCal airport to fly into, Ontario is not a bad choice. I don't know if I'd want a vacation there.
The Burbank airport, also very good. If you're flying in, avoid LAX at
all costs.
The
Burbank airport is like, it's like from the 70s.
It is.
It's like stuck in the 70s.
The baggage claim is outside. That couldn't happen in Arizona. We know that.
Very strange.
It is strange. But I will tell you, our friends from OGs has launched 2 new products with live rosin and Rick Simpson oil that you can get right now that will make anything you do in life better. They're OGs Naturals, and the big OGs are now available. OGs Naturals are vegan gummies made with live rosin and available in a sweet clementine flavor. Meanwhile, the big OGs, which OGs made specifically for me, is a mega version of Peg's Raspberry Orange RSO, which is Rick Simpson oil, one of the company's most popular products. It's perforated into 10 slices so that you can share those pieces with other people. However, it's also just one big old gummy for you to eat by yourself. Don't let people tell you otherwise. Like freshly squeezed juice, live rosin is created through a pressing process. The highest quality harvested cannabis is frozen and ultimately pressed to extract the all-natural live rosin oil. It's fascinating to see in real life, Jesse. I mean, most people like that don't know about the advancements in weed science would be blown away by what these companies do in order to achieve this. It's really fascinating. But to learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com now. And big shout out to all of our PHNX diehards. If you are not a diehard, you can join the family over at gophnx.com. You'll get a free t-shirt as part of your welcome package from the phnxlocker.com of your choosing, as well as all sorts of wonderful benefits, including Jesse's newsletter, the access to all of our newsletters, all of our content, access to our members-only Discord lounge, discounts with our partners, and so much more. So sign up today. Of course, the Discord lounge alone is worth the price of admission. So join the PHNX family now and get down in 2024 with us.
Elise says Long Beach is a good airport too. I think we should probably draft Southern California airports. Yeah, that seems like a good off-season.
Are we going to the beach or are we going to Disneyland?
Which one? Oh, John Wayne is Orange County.
John Wayne is Orange County.
It's great.
It's amazing how many options
there are. A lot. And most people just choose LAX and then they pay more to fly into LAX for a worse experience.
LAX is the wrong.
It's the wrong choice. If you're flying into LAX, you made the wrong choice. But
Tim said that Ontario, Oregon is also a thing. Maybe we do a road trip where we hit all of the Onterios.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm down.
Awesome.
It's a massive road trip.
And then we
the amount of land you're covering.
Song in each town. You're going to Oregon soon, so you'll be able to scout it out, right? You're going on one of the.
I'm going to Portland. I don't think it looks like Ontario, Oregon is basically Idaho. So I'm not really going to be on that side.
All right.
Of the
well,
state,
when I go visit my friend Josh, who is a PHNX diehard, I will make sure to go check out Ontario.
Canada is like where Buffalo is.
Yeah.
That's not an easy drive.
No.
Road trip that we have
Damon's
planned out
trying to realistically warn us that this is a bad idea. Like as if Jesse and I are about to set out on this venture tomorrow.
We're going to the Pacific Northwest and then going across all of North America.
Yeah. Can we stop at Banff in Canada? I've always wanted to go to Banff.
We can make some great
let's go. All right. Well, I guess we never answered the question that we, posed to start this show or to headline this show. But going back to the Chicago Cubs, we know that they weren't really a problem for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
They were almost a problem.
They were almost a problem, but we kind of steamrolled them there at the end of the season.
Right. That is true.
But the Cubs, does this make the Cubs a contender? And especially with what we discussed also with potentially them losing Marcus Stroman. It looks like they're going to lose Marcus Stroman.
Probably.
Does the initial addition of Imanaga make up for the loss of Stroman, and does that continue to make them a contender in the National League?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. This is a move that I think they had to make. They had to get a starter to replace Stroman if they weren't bringing Stroman back. That seems pretty clear. I still think they need a bat. You can't just let Cody Bellinger have the kind of season he had and then lose him in free agency and not replace him. He was a really big part of the Cubs' success in 2023. Obviously, replacing Cody Bellinger simply could be signing Cody Bellinger, right? That would be one way to go about that. I don't know if that's on their radar at all. But
that's a pretty good way. That's like how we replaced Lourdes Gurriel Jr. with Lourdes Gurriel Jr., right?
It's a pretty solid way to, if you're trying to. Although with Bellinger, it's interesting because I don't really think that if you did bring Bellinger back, that I would expect him to do what he did in 2023. So it might not be as even of a replacement as you would think. But it's interesting. The NL Central is not a good division. Very poor division. I think the AL Central is probably worse, but the NL Central is right up there with it. The St. Louis Cardinals, I think I see as the best team in the NL Central, as crazy as that might sound after the season they just had. I still look at that roster and I see a team that I don't expect them to win 90, 95 games necessarily, but I do think the Cardinals are the best team in the Central today. But you fool. The Reds and the Brewers are still in there. They both seem like right around 500 teams to me. Could maybe get above that depending on how the rest of the offseason goes. And I think the Cubs are kind of in that same place for me right now. If they did bring back Bellinger, if they do add a big bat, that would probably, at least in my mind, make them a more formidable team than the Brewers and the Reds. I still might prefer the Cardinals at that point, but in the wild card race, I think the Cubs have a chance. And in the division, I think they also have a chance given the lack of talent there. But they need to make another move. They need to add at least one bat for me to really cement themselves into the postseason conversation.
Well, we do kind of come even with the Chicago Cubs when it comes to one important factor.
Oh, yes.
Jesse.
Yeah.
And that is which MLB fans drink the most. I don't think this counts for drinking at home. I don't believe this counts for drinking in the parking lot, definitely, for sure, based on where the Philadelphia Phillies are at. But if we could take a look at this graphic, what you'll see here is that according to this graphic, Chicago White Sox fans indeed drink the most, with an average of 4.2 drinks per game, spending on average $46 per game on alcohol.
That's one fan?
That
4.2 drinks per game?
That is one fan on average drinking 4.2 drinks per game while at the game. That's a lot.
That's a little concerning.
That's a lot. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks tie with the Cubs for, I don't know, I'm not going to count all the way down there. They're about the middle of the pack, probably like 12th or 13th, somewhere around there. 3.4 drinks per game. But you know what these other teams can't hang with us on even close, besides maybe like the Twins, is the average spent on alcohol, because we know the Diamondbacks are just killing every other team when it comes to affordable cost of drinks here in Arizona. So your 3.4 drinks are costing you on average almost $20 less than the Chicago Cubs fans are paying for their 3.4 drinks at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, I mean,
that's big.
At Chase Field, it does seem, I'm not one to, go around the ballpark looking for beer, especially when I'm working, but it seems like there is a big distinction between like the value beer and some of the other beers around the ballpark.
Correct.
Not every beer at Chase Field is necessarily super affordable. But yeah, on the whole, the Diamondbacks make that available.
The value beer is a big factor. Value beer, I think, is like $8, and yes, it's a small guy, but sometimes people just want to sip on a beer. They're not looking for a tall boy. They're not trying to go out there and get smashed, especially here. Now, the one thing we need to address is the Phillies being at the bottom of that list. They are averaging 2.4 drinks per game and spending $23 on average on alcohol, which is less than your average Diamondbacks fan.
There's a clear explanation.
There's a clear
right?
explanation. They're tailgating out front. They're pre-gaming, and they're coming into the games drunk. And obviously, we've seen that based on some of the interview videos afterwards. But I think Jesse can attest to this, even on some of his interactions with fans upon entering the game. Jesse doesn't go in 5 minutes before the game, folks. Jesse's going in 4 hours, 5 hours before the first pitch is thrown, and you're already out there drunk. What is happening?
Where I really experienced the drinking habits of Phillies fans was in the Phoenix airport after one of the NLCS games. This is when the series was going back to Philly. I think I've told this story on the show before, but there were a lot of people on this flight who were Phillies fans who were just coming over from the game. There were several other reporters as well. It was like we all went from Chase Field to the airport.
Right.
And
you've checked out of your hotel already. You were going home tonight.
Yes, you know. And there were several Phillies fans that were not allowed on the plane because they had a little bit too much fun at the ballpark, as one of the flight attendants said on the plane. So
that's delightful.
Granted, it's a postseason game. Like, those fans made the trip all the way to Arizona. They were there to have a good time. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably some tailgating happening for those Phillies home games too.
That's the thing is that I, as much as I want to believe that is incorrect, that seems to track. So anyway, that's how things break down. But definitely make sure that when you go out to the ballpark, get yourself some beers. Help increase that, I guess. I don't know. We want to be number one at everything, don't we?
Is it good if your team is number one? Because I view the White Sox being number one on that list is like, you're watching the White Sox. Mm-hmm. You probably do need a couple more drinks, right? Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily a positive thing for your franchise.
Are the White Sox like low-key Jesse's least favorite team? He only ever
he loves to burn the White Sox.
He only shoots shots at the White Sox.
I did make a joke about there was a report about the White Sox moving to Nashville, and I was like, but Nashville already has a AAA team.
That's what I'm saying.
Well done.
It's always the
I
White
do
Sox.
throw more shade at the White Sox.
He does.
They're a pretty easy team to throw shade at. Let's be real here.
I would love to know the impact of edibles on this list as well, but that's a whole other scientific process that we would have to figure out, of course. Well, we thank you guys, of course, for stopping by. We will be back tomorrow. Is tomorrow Thursday, Jesse?
I think tomorrow's Thursday.
Do we want to unveil who our special guest is for Thursday, since we talk about him so often?
I don't know. You think we should?
Yeah, I mean, or what I could do is have I have an AI generated prompt ready to go, and I will just go ahead and write in there like and create a video of Jesse telling everybody that Dan Szymborski from Fangraphs is going to join us on the show on Thursday at 1 p.m.
Yeah. Dan is the mind behind the madness that is Zips, which we talked about on the show last week.
It's still crazy to me to think of having your name on MLB.com's glossary of terms as like a Szymborski projection system.
Yeah,
but then the Z is the part that's like bolded, just to remind you.
That's what I aspire to, Derek. Yeah. I really want some version, some knockoff of my last name being in the MLB.com glossary.
The Friedman system.
And but what is it?
I don't know.
What am I going to do?
We'll figure it out.
I can't come up with
the name is the most important thing. We start there, and then we'll go from there. All right, you got to get more familiar with AI in order to be on Szymborski's level. That's for sure. But
what if my projection system is just like me just writing down numbers? There's no actual computer models.
Yeah.
It's just you give me the name of a player. I write down like, he's probably going to hit like 266.
109 OPS plus. There you go.
I used to follow this guy who on NBA Twitter, he made up like a fake stat and started just saying that like these players here was the rankings of this stat and it just sounded like an advanced statistic.
So did he get it to catch on?
And real like NBA Twitter people were like using it in their arguments.
That's something we can make happen.
It is unfortunate how easy it is to pull something like that out.
I love trouble, and you love just stats enough just to be in on that. So
people just
we'll
love quantifying things. So, like, if they have any ability to, they'll be like, "Well, he's 6th in WXBA plus," and you're like,
people just love quantifying things. Damon Farrell.
Yeah,
we're gonna hang that on the wall.
I love it. Right next to Max saying of the shoulder is the window to the face, I think is what she said. Oh yeah. We got some good motivational posters to make for gophnx.com. Anyway, we thank you guys for stopping by. Of course, make sure to follow us on Twitter for more of this exciting banter. I am at Cap_caveman with a K. This maniac next to me is at Jesse N. Friedman. Damon, of course, is the people's producer. You can find him at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are Damon's dogs. Bark, bark. Our show's at PHNX_DBacks, but of course, all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for stopping by. We appreciate your time. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. with Dan Zimborski here with us. Probably not in studio. That's probably a long flight.
I think he lives on the East Coast.
Yeah,
that might be ambitious.
We'll just have him zoom in. But of course, we'll be back tomorrow at 1. We hope you guys join us. In the meantime, we thank you for your time today and appreciate you. Remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you don't lead the league in drinks per person.
We all silly like the mayor.